What's up? What's good? It's your boy, Tommy Springfield, aka the King of All Talk. And what I really want to know is how y'all doing out there? It's your boy, Tommy Springfield, coming live and direct out of the city of Springfield, Massachusetts. And today, the question is, where is Diddy? Diddy is hiding, unless you've been under a rock. Diddy's homes have been raided, and he missing. Let's get into it.
Today, the feds raided homes in Los Angeles and Miami that belong to rap mogul Sean P. Diddy Combs. And tonight we hear those raids are linked to possible sex trafficking. A criminal defense attorney will share his perspective in a moment. But first, here's the latest on the situation unfolding on two coasts.
I was shocked. I was taken back. I was really shocked. I mean, I never even expected this to happen.
More people coming out. Who's this guy? Yeah, they're all kind of dressed
Definitely
alike.
shocking and hectic out here in Holmby Hills at one of Sean Diddy Combs' homes. We were first on scene as it all unfolded. We came right in the middle of the convoy of about 40 undercover law enforcement vehicles before they even put up the crime scene tape. The Department of Homeland Security making a big bust, officers say, in connection to a sex trafficking investigation. While it was all happening, investigators were also raiding his home in Miami. Homeland Security has not yet released details or named Diddy as the focus of the investigation. 20-year-old Ryan Mendelson, he's lived nearby his whole life, and he often visits his best friend just a few doors down.
But I've seen maybe once a week girls lingering outside. I drive by a lot, and I see that a lot of girls,
Yeah,
5 or 6
you
girls
drive
outside.
by a
So I'm
lot.
leaving.
Yeah, you want to get invited inside the house, and you look like the white dude that was in the bed with the alleged Stevie J dude. Let me find out you been hanging that puffy crib, little man. Let me find out.
Some not. Some going in. Black Suburbans. Never know. I never thought anything of it, but now this is crazy. I mean,
As we broke word on scene, and from Skyfox, Mapleton Drive near Sunset and Beverly Glen became a madhouse. And as more Bearcats and undercover cops pulled in, so did the swarms of onlookers, even a celebrity tour bus.
We all have to keep our minds open to what's going on here. And
This is from Brooklyn, though. Leave Puffy alone, man. Y'all crazy.
Right, leave Diddy
There are a
alone.
lot of questions tonight, including
So, like I said, unless you've been under a rock, that's what was going on yesterday. Diddy done disappeared. All type of spots is reporting this. Let's go on over here to TMZ. TMZ is reporting this man out here pacing. Sons King and Justin Combs leave his LA mansion after raid. So the boys is still free. Diddy's two sons who were hauled out of his LA home during a federal raid came back to the property late at night, but they left very quickly thereafter with their stuff in tow. Justin and King Combs were seen on video in handcuffs as the Homeland Security agents swept through their father's Beverly Hills estate, ended up arriving and eventually hightailing it late Monday night. This after the feds had a good look around.
With eBay Authenticity Guarantee, it's checked by
The boys like, man, it's over, man. We gotta go back to the hood, man. Pops done fucked it all up. Messing with these young girls and drugging people. Got us messing with these young girls. Got us drugging people. And this could be the crumblings of an empire, man. This could be the crumblings of another billion-dollar black man falling. But, I mean, from the looks of it, not because he innocent, but because he do shit. He Diddy shit.
Looks like they're moving things out of the house.
Hell yeah, because if you look at the paperwork, they moving things out. Because if you look at the paperwork,
Some kind of
Diddy's son lives somewhere else.
roller suitcase.
You know what I'm saying? Diddy's son lives somewhere else. The other Diddy yet. You know, they saying Diddy done landed in Antigua. But his plane was there, but he wasn't there. But it don't matter. Because maybe that's where he sent the evidence. You know? That's long as the evidence got up out of there, he good. Because evidently he knew they was coming. And, you know, he had plans for this. If you think $1 billion dudes don't got plans for situations like this, you a fool. But see, this is a story saying whoever the anonymous accuser is, she can no longer remain anonymous. So we about to find out who that is too. But last night I was reading a little bit of the case, and I ain't going back because this is like 78 pages, and I'm on page 28. But we gonna get into reading some of this. This is the case from Lil Rock. So it's no secret that Mr. Combs had Pacific bottles of alcohol designated for females and bottles designated for his staff, his artists, and himself. The fact was detailed by former artists and bodyguards of Mr. Combs. As a sponsor of events, defendant Grange had a duty and obligation to ensure the sex workers and underage girls were not present and that Mr. Combs was not spiking the alcohol with date rape drugs. On YouTube channel The Art of the Dialogue, former bodyguard Gene Dell exposed Combs' pill mixing methods used to spike cranberry juice and orange juice. According to Mr. Dill, Mr. Combs would place ecstasy and other date rape drugs in the juices. On YouTube, The Art of the Dialogue, former artist Mark Curry exposed Mr. Combs spiking bottles of Moet champagne in the VIP section of the nightclubs. Mr. Combs would have a set of Moet champagne bottles for artists and a set for women. So, you know, he'd be like, here you go, Meek. Take this bottle, Meek. And he would play with Meek's cheeks. That's what it was alleged was going on. Diddy out here playing with cheeks. But Mr. Jones, Lil Rod, he strikes me as a little strange because, you know, his asshole would just be laying out for people to fondle, you know. People may fondle your butt cheeks and fondle your balls, but how do they fondle your asshole? How is your asshole just laying around on the kitchen table? What, do Diddy just walk in the kitchen, open the refrigerator, and be like, oh, shit, this asshole, and just fondle it? That don't make no sense that he fondled your asshole. And that's what Rod said in this paperwork. The writer has also spoken with several former employees of Mr. Combs who witnessed defendant Coham, KK, instruct her staff to lace champagne, De Leon, and Ciroc liquor bottles with ecstasy and other illicit drugs. Mr. Jones recalls seeing defendant, whatever the name is, visiting Mr. Combs' home in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles. And according to Mr. Jones, whenever defendant Habata Marian visited Mr. Combs at his homes, it would be in the evening, and she and Mr. Combs would disappear for hours in Mr. Combs' bedroom. According to Mr. Jones, defendant, whatever her name is, KK, that ain't KK, that's the other one, visited Mr. Combs at defendant CRS during Mr. Combs' writing camp. Defendant, whatever her name is, sponsored and attended several Love album listening parties at Mr. Combs' home in Los Angeles. The parties were sponsored by defendants MR, LR, and UMG. As evidence above, these parties had sex workers and underage girls present. During these parties, defendant H knew or should have known that Mr. Combs was drugging the attendees through lace bottles of De Leon, tequila, and Ciroc vodka. As a sponsor of these events, defendant H and had a duty and the obligation to ensure the sex workers, underage girls, were not present and that Mr. Combs was not spiking alcohol with date rape drugs. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months he lived and traveled with Mr. Combs, he witnessed Mr. Combs display and distribute guns from his bedroom closet in Miami, Florida, and Los Angeles, California to questionable individuals dressed in all black. According to Mr. Jones, during the 13 months he lived and traveled with Mr. Combs, he witnessed defendant K, which is KK, openly order her assistants to keep Mr. Combs high off gummies and pills. So, once again, so he witnessed the ladies, the handlers, the people that used to work for the other major companies that now work for Diddy say keep Diddy high. So, was these people just giving Diddy shit because they were handlers? You know, their job was to keep Diddy high. Their job was to keep Diddy compromised. Or was it Diddy doing these things? See, you gotta watch Rod. You saying you lived with Diddy for 13 months. Why after the first 2 months and he fondled your asshole, as you say, you didn't leave? Why after the guy in the bathroom got shot and there were police there and you could have just fell into the arms of the police and said, oh, officer, Diddy's been following my booty. Could you help me? Why you didn't leave then? You know why? Because you wanted the fame. You wanted the glory. You wanted to be famous. You wanted to live that Diddy lifestyle. Now that he's moved on, he don't want you. He got another little rod. People are suing. Same thing with Cassie. She moved on. Diddy moved on. Now you realize you don't live the lifestyle. You're not on that love boat. You know, you're not in the love mobiles. And you're just not living the lifestyle. And you know, now you want to sue. Now you want to scream and yell. Now you want to say Diddy was doing things. But when you was going through the hazing process, when you was living the lifestyle, you was all good. So, let's get back. Defendant K required all employees from the butler, the chief, to the housekeepers to walk around with a pouch of fanny pack filled with cocaine, GHB, ecstasy, marijuana gummies, and Tucci, a pink drug that is combination of ecstasy and cocaine. It was important to Defendant K to have Mr. Combs' drug of choice immediately ready when he asked for it. Defendant K ordered sex workers and prostitutes for Mr. Combs. Defendant K ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms to Mr. Combs and his celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht and in his homes, L.A., New York, and Miami. On multiple occasions, Defendant K forced Mr. Jones to carry Mr. Combs' drug pouch against his will. As a chief of staff, Defendant K was instrumental in organizing and executing the RICO enterprise. Defendant K had the following individuals execute the following tasks for the RICO enterprise. Stevie J recruits sex workers and attends, participates in freak-offs. Justin Combs solicitates prostitutes, underage girls, and sex workers would engage in freak-offs. Brendan Pauls works as Mr. Combs' mule. He inquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. And he's claiming, as you can see, number 19 right there. We have a recording of this and we'll provide to the court. We have a recording of Mr. Combs, CBJ, and Playlist Jones at a strip club. Mr. Combs is recording the video while coaching and training Playlist Jones how to recruit the sex workers. Brendan Paul and Mr. Combs. Frankie Santella works along Brendan while Brendan acquires and distributes Mr. Combs' drugs and guns. Frankie carries the money and pays for the guns and drugs. Moy Barn hires sex workers and attends and participates in free calls. Mr. Combs founded and used his affiliation with local gangs and gang leaders who would frequent his homes in L.A. and Miami to secure the drugs and guns he obtained and distributed out of his homes in L.A. and Miami. Defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of violence, threatening to eat plaintiff's face, displaying and distributing guns in plaintiff's presence, bragging about having law enforcement under control, bragging about murdering people, and bragging about bribing witnesses and jurors in criminal cases concerning the 1999 New York nightclub shooting with Shine. Oh, that's homegirl. That's in this picture, that's the girl. That's Miss Miami cousin. That's her cousin. Hey, Diddy, man, I'll take cuz. Money man act like he don't want cuz, Diddy. I'll take cuz. I don't do drugs, Diddy. I just smoke a little bit of weed. And Diddy, you can't be following me, my balls, my asshole, none of that. I don't play those games, Diddy. But, let's get back into reading this. Defendants executed their RICO enterprise with threats of non-payment for work completed, fake promises of cash payouts, $250,000 Producer of the Year Grammy Awards, and guaranteed access to future projects in a $20 million home on Star Island in Miami. Now you see, this is why he stayed around for 13 months. Don't be fooled like he was a victim. He stayed around for 13 months because he was promised things. And I read that earlier. If you go into yesterday's video with the same thumbnail, you will see that. He was promised $250,000. He was promised a Producer of the Year Grammy Award. He was promised a $20 million home. So he say. That's what he say. That's his story. But if you out here working and you ain't getting paid and you ain't got no paperwork, you the fool, not Diddy. If people out here thinking Diddy is the only millionaire, billionaire out here getting over on people, do you think they became millionaires and billionaires by giving everybody everything they want? You think they became millionaires and billionaires by overpaying people or paying people? That millionaires and billionaires are more penny pinchers than the poor people. That's how they became successful. So if you out here letting people finesse you, that's kind of on you. But once again, they come back and they try to sue the bag. So while living and traveling with Mr. Combs, Mr. Jones discovered that Mr. Combs has hidden cameras in every room of his home. Mr. Jones believes that Mr. Combs has recording of defendants Lucy Ann Charles, Ethiopian, as well as other celebrities, music label executives, politicians, and athletes. Upon information and belief, these individuals were recorded without their knowledge and consent, and as is the case with the homosexual sex tape of Stevie J and Mr. Combs, that Mr. Combs provided to Mr. Jones. Mr. Combs possesses compromising footage of every person that has attended the freak-offs and parties and his house parties. Upon information and belief, due to these treasures troves of evidence he has in his possession, Mr. Combs believes that he is above the law and untouchable. Upon information and belief, Mr. Combs employs Jose Cruz as his IT director. This writer has spoken to several former employees of Mr. Combs who confirmed that Jose Cruz is the gatekeeper to all of Mr. Combs' recordings. Upon information and belief, Jose Cruz intentionally hides behind the camera and from social media and the internet due to all the incriminating acts he was required to record for Mr. Combs. Jose Puff's tech guy. That's allegedly him giving out numbers. Mr. Jones incorporates by reference all preceding paragraphs and realleges them as if set forth fully herein. A respondent, superior, defendants, Luciana Green, I'm not going to say all their names, are 100% liable for actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Christian K., as they were acting in their capacities as respondent, superior, collective employees when they committed the acts detailed below. The respondent superior collective failed to adequately monitor, warn, or supervise the actions of Sean Combs, Justin Combs, and Christian K. So this dude in the court is alleging that other grown people have control of other grown people. That don't even make sense to me. But it is what it is. That's what we do out here, and it is what it is. So, let's see. This is just all law stuff. Defendants have increasingly increased their profits by lowering and deceiving producers, music writers, and this is just law stuff. Upon information and belief, the RICO enterprise has existed for at least 20 years, dating back to 1999 shooting in New York when Mr. Combs required his then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez to transport his illegal firearm into New York nightclub. Mr. Combs forced his then artist Shine to assume responsibility for the shooting of several individuals. Mr. Combs used his power, money, influence to bribe jurors and witnesses such as the friend of the shooting victim, Natina Rubin, who reported to law enforcement that she saw Mr. Combs and not Shine pull the trigger and shoot her friend in the face. Natina later testified at Mr. Combs' criminal trial that she was tying her shoe and may not have seen who shot the gun. She later confessed that Mr. Combs paid her. The RICO enterprise continued throughout the years, including during Mr. Combs' 10-year relationship with his girlfriend Cassie Ventura. According to Miss Ventura's civil complaint, this RICO enterprise continued in their relationship with when Mr. Combs forced her to carry a gun in her purse, forced her to engage in unwanted sexual acts with male prostitutes, sex workers, forced her to consume dangerous amounts of ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, and paying a member of his security team $5,000 to blow up the vehicle of Kid Cudi because he was jealous and insecure of the relationship. So that's a gem right there. Cassie alleges Diddy done blew up Kid Cudi's car. Diddy out here blowing up cars and all type of shit. The enterprise continued from September 2022 to the present day as evidenced by hundreds of hours of video and audio recorders in plaintiff's possession. Defendant Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Kristen K, his assistant, and staff all orchestrated, participated, managed, and executed the RICO enterprise by purchases and distributing ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms by purchasing and distributing firearms. I'm going to tell you something interesting about black folks. You see, I'm bumbling and stumbling to read certain words because, I'm not the greatest intelligent guy. But guess what? We know how to read all them drugs, though. We know the names of them goddamn drugs. Ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms. We know the names of them drugs, though. But by purchasing and distributing firearms, by requiring the solicitation of sexual encounters with prostitutes, sex workers, and labor to produce music and other tangled goods and services without compensation, the RICO enterprise has functioned as a continuing unit and maintains as a something insurmountable structure separate and distant from the pattern of racketeering activity. The enterprise was characterized by the defendant's pattern of false representations and omissions made by defendants Sean Combs, Justin Combs, Kristen K, and other current and former members of the Defendants Association and staff, defendants, artists, creative musicians, and producers. The false reputations omissions was designed to induce defendants, artists, creative musicians, and producers to utilize their talents and labor and produce music and other tangled goods and services without compensation, as well as the solicitation of sexual encounters with prostitutes, sex workers, and minors, and the purchasing and distribution of illegal firearms and drugs. As part of the scam, defendants required their artists, creative musicians, and producers to visit strip clubs wearing exclusive, authentic bad boy merchandise and to use the name and reputation of Mr. Combs to solicitate sex workers and prostitutes. Additionally, Mr. Combs used the prospects of winning Grammy Awards, purchasing $20 million home, participating in future projects, making 250 cash payments, and meeting influential music industry executives such as defendants Lucian Charles Grange in Ethiopia. This pattern of false representation was disseminated to artists, creative musicians, and producers who reside in California, Florida, New York, and around the country by defendants based in California and New York under the direction and behalf of defendants in New York. The dissemination typically use interstate telephone wires, social media messages, and electric mail. You know, like I said, it's just a lot of with, you know, Jones is saying legal mumbo jumbo to defend profit from enterprise, and plaintiff Jones suffered because enterprise diminished plaintiff Jones' finances due to 13 months of non-payment and diminished plaintiff Jones' health throughout consistent drug and enforced sexual encounters. You know, one thing about me, man, I'm going to be honest with you. I was raised that nobody can't do nothing to you that you don't want done. This dude stayed around for 13 months getting found, getting this, getting that. Bro, you wanted that because you wanted to be in the life. Like I say repeatedly, like Orlando Brown say, everybody want to join the frat until the hazing go too far. And then when you go through all the hazing and you still don't make the frat, now you upset. Now you want to downplay the frat. Now you want to talk bad about the frat leader. Now you want to tell the world, yo, you was made to do this. You was made to do that. But in America, you can call the cops and leave. It's just that simple. Stop it with the, oh, I'm a victim and he found in my booty hole. You let him find your booty hole. And now he's crying about missing birthdays with his family and all that. You could have went home. Like I said, this is just more mumbo jumbo of him saying this and that. But, you know, it is what it is. So, this is another lawsuit. And this is Jane Doe defending Sean Combs. The attorneys answered in defense to the come. This is just another lawsuit, and I'm looking at it, but it's not really going into detail. This is, I think, Diddy's response. Paragraph 3 of the complaint alleges characterizations and or opinions for which no response is required, and on the defendant denies those allegations, except the defendant admits that Joe Dickerson Neal filed a complaint in the Supreme Court on the state of New York, County of New York, on November 23rd, 2023, in which the defendant was named a defendant, and Liza Gardner filed a complaint in the Supreme Court of the state of New York City, County of New York, in November 27, in which the defendant was named defendant. Respectfully refers the court to those pleadings for the true content, meaning, and report. To Jane Doe on November 21st, 23, in which Harvey Pierre, Bad Boy Records, and Comb Enterprise, LLC were named as defendants, and respectfully refers the court to that pleading for its true content, meaning, yeah, this is just Diddy. This just Diddy response, so it's really not giving us too much information. So let's go to this one. Okay. On November 16, 2023, Cassandra Venture, a.k.a. Cassie, filed a lawsuit in which she exposed Sean Combs for subjecting her to nearly a decade of physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. Lawsuit is filed and a few days after Cassie filed her lawsuit, 2 others was filed against Mr. Combs. the same time, a fourth lawsuit was filed, one against Mr. Combs' companies and defendant Harvey Pierre, longtime president of Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Inc. The suit alleges that Mr. Pierre used his position of power at Bad Boy to groom and sexually assault his former assistant, and that Bad Boy looked the other way at the time. This is now the fifth lawsuit against Mr. Combs in the last 3 weeks. Incredibly, the allegations brought by Mr. Doe are in many ways even more egregious than those brought by those prior victims, specifically in 2003 when she was only 17. And in the 11th grade, Mr. Doe was sex trafficked and gang raped by Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and a third assailant. In short, when she was just a teenager, Miss Doe and Mr. Pierre and the third assailant in a lounge in the Detroit, Michigan area. While at the lounge, Mr. Pierre insisted that he was best friends with Mr. Combs and even called Mr. Combs with Mrs. Doe. Mr. Combs convinced Miss Doe, who was half his age at the time, to accompany Mr. Pierre and the third assailant on a private jet to come to his studio in New York City. Okay, so, hold on one second. You know I'm old. I can't see. I got to get my glasses. Okay, now I can see a little better. Hold on. But yeah, as you can see, you know, all these people are basically just trying to get Diddy's pockets. That's all. They can care less what happened to them. They was okay with what was happening to them. They was cool with it. As you will see, a lot of them was going back for more. They were all happy and okay with it until, same thing with R. Kelly, until these people realized that, oh, he don't want me no more. I ain't got no more fancy cars no more. I'm back in the hood. Then all these people be ready to tell and sell out for a check. And basically, that's what it is. So, this is now the fifth lawsuit. Specifically, okay, we read all that. When she was just a teenager. Okay, another thing I wanted to address. How is 17-year-old girls getting on planes and just leaving? Okay, if you 17 and you in 11th grade, so your mom and father just let you get on a private jet and just go? See, a lot of this shit don't be adding up, don't make sense. But before they left for the private jet, Mr. Pierre smoked crack cocaine in the bathroom at the lounge, in which he also sexually assaulted Miss Doe by forcing her to give him oral sex. Mr. Pierre, third assailant, and another gentleman then escorted the high schooler to a private jet which flew them to Peterborough, New Jersey. There were SUVs awaiting the group at Teterboro, and the four of them were driven to Diddy's house recording studio, a studio famously owned and operated by Mr. Combs and Bad Boy. While at the studio, Mr. Combs and his associates, including Mr. Pierre, plied Miss Doe with drugs and alcohol. As the night wore on, the 17-year-old Mrs. Doe became more and more inebriated, eventually to the point that she could not possibly have consented to having sex with anyone, much less someone twice her age. While at the studio, Miss Doe was gang raped by Mr. Combs, the third assailant, and Mr. Pierre in the order. While Mr. Combs was raping Mr. Doe, he complained that he could not get off unless she pinched his nipples as hard as she could. Mr. Combs then watched as the third assailant, who Mr. Doe had not even realized had begun to have sex with her, raped Miss Doe as she told him to stop. After the third assailant was finished, Mr. Pierre took his turn at raping Miss Doe and then violently forced her to give him orally sex, during which Miss Doe was choking and struggling to breathe. I mean, not for nothing, shorty. That's usually what happens when you deep throat in the D. You usually struggle to breathe, and you usually choke. That's normal. If you suck the D before, shorty, you know that. Stop the bullshit. And once again, I'm not on Diddy's side. I'm not on her side. But when you read these stories, you see where some of these stories start to not make sense. You know? You see where some of these stories start to not make sense. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to line up. You can see the little black line that means my computer ain't getting the green screen. So when you see me pull stuff up and you see me moving things around, that's just me trying to make sure I'm properly lined up. But, okay. When Mr. Pierre finished, he left Miss Doe in the bathroom alone. Miss Doe fell into the fetal position and lay on the floor. Her vagina was in pain. Finally, after a period of time, Miss Doe regained her bearings. However, she could barely stand up following a gang rape and had to be helped to walk out the building and back into her car. She was taken back to an airport, flown back to Michigan. However, she was very limited recollection of her transport home and only remembers being in her car sometime early in the morning. Unlike many victims who have come forward after decades, Miss Doe can prove that she not only met Mr. Combs on the night in question, but was in the studio in New York City with him on that night. Remember, when viewing these, Miss Doe was 17. Wait a minute. So, okay, she claimed they was in the studio, but if you go back, she said they went to New Jersey. They flew from Michigan, New Jersey, and now she was in New York. I mean, not saying New York is not a quick drive from Jersey, but you know, I mean, damn, you a millionaire, billionaire, and you wasting your time flying a girl all the way from Michigan just to have a train on her and then send her back. I mean, that's a tremendous story, but and from these pictures, you know, it says remember that she's 17, but I don't see nothing bad about her where I'm gonna fly her across the country. But anyways, Miss Doe has lived with her memories of this fateful night for 20 years, during which time she has suffered extreme emotional distress that has impacted nearly every aspect of her life and personal relationships, given the brave women who have come forward against Mr. Combs and Mr. Pierre. In recent weeks, Miss Doe is doing the same. See, I just find it crazy. Okay, she's saying this was 20 years ago when she was 17, so she 37. I just find it crazy that when you get away, you don't call for help. I know doctors and all these people are going to say, well, you know, they be traumatized and may be scared. I call bullshit. If someone doing something to you that you don't want done to you, don't let them do it to you. To me, it's just that simple. Don't let them do it to you. You got an uncle, you got a cousin, you got a brother, you got a dude that'll like you, that'll go on a suicide mission and would have fought Diddy for you. He might have got himself in a lot of trouble. He might have got hurt. He might have not been here. But the point is, there's a lot of ways you could have got away from Diddy, but people didn't get away from Diddy because they want the fame. They want the fortune. They willing to do whatever it takes to be famous. And once they realize I done gave up my booty, I done did this, I done did that, and he don't want me no more. That's when the lawsuits come. That's when people have the problems. That's when people have the issues. But it is what it is. To that end, Ms. Doe brings this action seeking injunctive, declaratory, and monetary relief against defendants in violation of the victim's gender motivated violence protective law. Now you see, monetary. That's the whole thing. These lawsuits be about money. These people don't care what happened to them. These people will do it again and again. And some of these people do. Some of these people will leave Diddy and now they part of Rick Ross' entourage. Or they'll leave Rick Ross after leaving Diddy and Rick Ross. Now they part of Drake entourage. These people, this is what they do for a living. But once the fame is gone, once they washed up, once they realize people don't want them no more, oh, now I want to sue. Yeah, man, they did me dirty. They did me bad. I want to sue. It's bullshit. Plaintiff Doe is a citizen of Canada. Defendant Sean Combs is a citizen of the state of California. Javi Pierre is a citizen of the state of New York. Defendant third assailant is upon information and belief a citizen of the state of New York. Defendant Daddy's house recording is that's just all the people they're suing. So this is the factual allegations. In 2003, Miss Doe was 17 years old, 11th grader, residing in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. At the time, Mr. Combs was 34, twice the age of Miss Doe, and one of the most well-known and influential music artists of all time. A decade earlier, Mr. Combs founded Bad Boy and installed his longtime friend, Mr. Pierre, into the role of president. At the time, Mr. Combs had many connections to Michigan, including, among others, the Black Mafia family, a drug trafficking and money laundering organization that rumored to have seeded Bad Boy. Now, out of all the rumors in the world and all the things you heard, I've never really heard of BMF giving Puffy the money. But these are the things that they put in these lawsuits to make it sound good. I haven't even read this, but I already know where it's going. The 17-year-old was trying to say, oh, he was down with BMF. And they was dangerous. So that's why I ain't tell, because, I live in Michigan with BMF. Bullshit. On one evening between the spring and fall of 2003, Miss Doe was out with friends. It was not uncommon for her and her friends to frequent bars and lounges in the Detroit area. Now, mind you, she was 17. Let's go right back here. She was 17 and an 11th grader at the bar. At the club. Now, a lot of things could be said. I could assume she 21. She in the bar, right? Isn't it the bar job to check ID? So now it's my job to go to the club, drink, have a nice time, try to holler at women, and I gotta check IDs? Because the club ain't doing their job? I should be able to go in the club, which is a 21 and over establishment, and be comfortable. And know, hey, I can holler at all these chicks. They 21 and over. Their ID has been checked at the door. But unfortunately, as we see, this ain't what go on. So where was you at? It's not uncommon for her and friends to frequent bars and lounges in the Detroit area. Certain of Mrs. Doe's friends was well connected with people in the music industry. So we already know these girls are going out to the bar. These girls are going to seek grown men. let's be honest here, everyone. Do you think Diddy is the only grown man this lady has slept with? I'll wait. Matter of fact, let me do that. This is not the only grown man she slept with. This is the only grown man that 20 years later she looked around and that people are suing. So she figured, let me get some too. You know, whether Diddy a scumbag or not, as human beings, we gotta be honest. A lot of these people be full of shit. It says right here, it was not uncommon for her and her friends to frequent bars and lounges. So who you think this 17-year-old girl was sleeping with? You think she was sleeping with dudes her age, or you think she was sleeping with dudes in those bars and lounges that she was frequently? And they were all grown. But everybody gonna let that go over their head. Everybody gonna want to be like, Diddy's an animal. Diddy's this, Diddy's that. No, these little girls do a lot of things that they want to do. And then later, like she said, she seen Cassie file a lawsuit. So she filed hers. She said, I'm going to get me a check. And on the evening in question, Miss Doe was with friends in the lounge when she was approached by who she later learned was Mr. Pierre. Mr. Pierre was with his own friends, including the third assailant. Mr. Pierre, the third assailant, and their friends were dressed in suits. Mr. Pierre repeatedly complimented Mrs. Doe's appearance, saying that she was hot, among other things. He then began talking to her about his self-described best friend and brother, Mr. Combs. Specifically, Mr. Pierre continually stated that Mr. Combs would love to meet Mrs. Doe. Mr. Pierre even called Mr. Combs and put Miss Doe on the line. Mr. Combs told Miss Doe that he would love to meet her and that she should accompany Mr. Pierre to New York City in a private jet. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Pierre directed Mr. Doe to go with him into a bathroom in the lounge. Once inside the bathroom, Mr. Pierre began to smoke crack cocaine from what appeared to be an aluminum can. After he finished smoking crack cocaine, Mr. Pierre shortly took out his penis, demanded that Mrs. Doe suck his dick, and forced Miss Doe head down to perform oral sex on him. After sexually assaulting Miss Doe, Mr. Pierre directed her to accompany him, the third assailant, and the third member of their group to the airport in Pontiac, Michigan, where Signature, a fixed base operation, have prepared the jet to take the four of them to New York City. Now, here's where you see the bullshit of people's stories. Here's where you see the shit that don't make sense to me. And I know, once again, doctors and lawyers, oh, you know, she was traumatized. Listen, you just met this dude, right? He put you on the phone with Puffy. We agree at this point, this girl's starstruck. She want to meet Puffy. She's 17, in the 11th grade, and at the club, and I'm going to jump out the window already sleeping with grown men. I know people going to be like, oh, you can't assume that. But up here it says it was common for her to frequent the club. Who you think, if she was sleeping around, who you think she was sleeping with? Dudes her age or dudes she was meeting at these clubs? Thank you. So, now, after getting on the phone with Puffy, this dude takes her into the bathroom of a bar, of a club, and smokes crack and forces her to give him head. Now, she don't say, I come out the bathroom screaming for help. You in Detroit, your town. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know if he dealt with BMF at the time, like you tried to say earlier in your statement. You didn't know all these things. So you in your town, you didn't see nobody in the bar you know? You didn't see no dudes in the bar you know, like, yo, this dude just bugged out. You in your city. They're strangers to your city. You got outside the bar. You didn't run, screaming into the middle of the street, oh, help, help. No, because you wanted to meet Diddy. You wanted to be famous. You wanted to be a star. You was willing to do anything. Yeah. You was willing to do anything to be more than just an 11th grader. Yeah. You was willing to do anything, and that's what it is. But nobody says that. Everybody gonna be like, oh, she was 17 and, you know, Diddy did this and Diddy did that. Man, Diddy did which she allowed him to do. She hopped on that plane. Nowhere in the story where she says she took on this plane by force. She went after a dude was smoking crack, after a dude forced her to give him head. She still went on that plane because that's what she wanted to do. So, upon information and belief, the private jet landed at Teterboro Airport. Upon departing the jet, 2 black SUVs was awaiting the group. Miss Doe got into the SUV with Mr. Pierre and the third assailant, and the other member of the group went in the second SUVs. The SUVs brought the group to Daddy's house recording studio and hung out and hangout owned and operated by Mr. Combs and Bad Boy. So I stand corrected. She did say they went straight to the studio from Teterboro. When Mrs. Doe arrived, she was escorted into the building where she distinctly remembered seeing a sign for the company Technicolor. Upon entering the studio, Miss Doe first encountered Mr. Combs. At the time she arrived, the female recording artist was using the studios as Mr. Combs and her parents watched on. She finished up shortly after Miss Doe arrived and left. While still in the studio section of Daddy's house, Mr. Combs asked Mr. Doe to sit on his lap and take a picture. Copy of the photo below. Dress already hiked high. All that. Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and the third assistant began to ply Miss Doe, a 17-year-old at the time, with concomitant amounts of drugs and alcohol. While the evening became a blur, Miss Doe does recall Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and the third assailant hitting on her incestuously, stroking her body, asking to see her ass, and telling her how hot and sexy she was. Various other pictures taken in the studio that night, leaving no doubt that Miss Doe was in Mrs. Combs' New York studio with Mr. Combs on the night she was raped. As the night wore on, the 17-year-old Mrs. Doe became more and more inebriated, eventually to the point where she could not possibly have consented to having sex with anyone, much less someone twice her age. Nevertheless, that evening, Mrs. Combs directed Mrs. Doe to accompany him to the bathroom of the studio. Once there, Mr. Combs removed Mrs. Doe's skirt and underwear and penetrated her from behind with his penis while she hung over the sink. Miss Doe did not consent to having sex with Mr. Combs, but he continued thrusting. At some point, Mr. Combs turned Miss Doe around to face him. He told her that he could not orgasm and asked her to squeeze his nipples as hard as she could to help him get off, and he then turned back around and continued to rape her. So, let's read that again. Miss Doe did not consent to having sex with Mr. Combs. Where in this statement did she say she said no? See, she was sleeping with Diddy. She was at the top of the totem pole, so to speak. But, and then he said he couldn't get off. You got to squeeze my nipples for him to get off. And he then turned her back around and continued to rape her. So, he's hitting it from the back. He turns her around and said, you got to squeeze my nipples. So what was she supposed to reach her arms backwards while he hitting it from the back and squeeze her nipples? You know, you see me. Does that look like it makes sense? She was supposed to reach back there and squeeze his nipples while he hitting it from the back. Because she said he then turned her around and continued to rape her. So what? He didn't want you to squeeze his nipples? Because you can't squeeze his nipples from reaching backwards. So you see how little parts of a story, to me, because I critique everything, will make a story seem bullshit. By this point, Miss Doe was coming in and out of consciousness because of the drugs and alcohol she had been given by defendants. Her next memory was looking up into the mirror above the sink to find the third assailant had replaced Mr. Combs and was raping her from behind. Mr. Combs, watching the third assailant, sexually assault Miss Doe from a chair outside of the bathroom. At this point, Miss Doe mustered the energy to tell the third assailant to stop. See? She never told Diddy to stop. Allegedly, so she say, and that she did not want to have sex with him. She was okay with Diddy, with him. The third assailant did not stop and continued to rape Miss Doe and did not have enough strength to force him off her. After the third assailant was finished, he was replaced by Mr. Pierre, who began by having non-consensual vaginal sex with Miss Doe before violently forcing her to give him oral sex. During the latter part of the sexual assault, Mr. Pierre forced his penis into Mrs. Doe's mouth without her consent. Mrs. Doe remembers that Pierre was sweaty and that she had difficulty breathing. When Mr. Pierre finished, he left Miss Doe in the bathroom alone. Miss Doe fell into the fetal position and lay on the floor. Her vagina was in pain. Finally, after a period of time, Mrs. Doe regained her bearings. However, she could barely stand up following the gang rape and had to be helped to walk out of the building and back into a car. She was taken to an airport and flown back to Michigan. However, she has limited recollection of her transfer home and only remembers being in her car sometime early in the morning. Her underwear were missing. As a result of being raped by Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre and a third assailant, Miss Doe, suffered significant emotional distress and feels ashamed that had plagued her life and personal relationships for 20 years. See, that's another thing they say in these lawsuits to get the jury to be going, oh my God, I feel so bad for her. Had plagued Doe suffered significant emotional distress and feels of shame that have plagued her life and personal relationship for 20 years. So you went through all this for 20 years. This the first time you thought to sue. This the first time you thought to tell anybody. Miss Doe knew that speaking out against defendants would be extremely difficult and that she would likely be subject to retaliation and defamation slurs and attacks. However, in November 2023, Miss Doe read about the lawsuit against Miss Combs by Cassandra Ventura, a.k.a. Cassie. Miss Ventura's suit described a decade of physical, sexual, and mental abuse. Most triggering for Miss Doe was read about Mrs. Ventura allegations of sex trafficking, being forced to have sex with other men against her will. Miss Doe obviously understands that she had been sex trafficked and that Mr. Combs behaved in forcing women into non-consensual sex was not an isolated incident or unique only to Mrs. Ventura. Then just days later, Miss Doe read about a case filed against Mr. Pierre. The suit alleged that Mr. Pierre used a position of power, bad boy, to groom and sexually assault his former assistant. Seeing two other women bravely speak out against Mr. Combs and Mr. Pierre respectively gave Miss Doe the confidence to tell her story as well as such the suits. As such, she files this suit. So, of course, if you see other people getting money, you want some too. Because you 20 years, you ain't think to sue. You've been living with all these problems, and you ain't think to sue for 20 years? Of course you didn't think to sue for 20 years. Because you was okay with what happened until you seen other people getting a check. Plaintiff repeats and realizes each and every allegation in all preceding paragraphs except for, this is just her swearing that it's the truth. The above is kind of defendant, including but not limited Mr. Combs' sex. Yeah, this is just her her saying, yeah, I said all this, and this is the truth. Plaintiff prays judgment be entered in her favor against defendants and each of them as follows: for money judgment representing compensatory damages, including consequential damages, lost wages, and earning of all other sums of money together with interest on those amount according to proof. So, what lost wages? This happened 20 years ago. What's she gonna say? I've been on welfare and getting food stamps for 20 years, and so I lost wages because I couldn't earn because they did this to me 20 years ago. And all other sums of money together with interest of these amounts according to proof. For money judgment, for mental pain and anguish and severe emotional distress according to proof. For punitive and explanatory damages according to proof. For attorney fees and costs. For pre-judgment and post-judgment interest, and for such other and further relief as the court may deem just as proper. So once again, you read all these cases and they all in the same. We just want some money. Sorry for Diddy that, he wasn't smart enough to end these cases at a different time, in private. because, you know, he could have saved his career. But that's what happens when you think you the man and you think you run things, you know? You think you unstoppable. You think you untouchable. You think nothing could happen to you. And that's just what it is. 25-year-old accused of being Diddy was arrested on cocaine and marijuana possession charges. This arrest occurred around the same time law enforcement raided Combs' home. Paul was recently named in a lawsuit by Little Rod and accused Paul of acquiring and distributing Mr. Combs' drugs and gun. A person close to the situation confirmed to Rolling Stone that Paul mugshot was the same named in Jones' complaint. So the little white dude that was accused of getting the drugs from Diddy and him was arrested. Yeah, so this is full-fledged. Diddy done. It's over for Diddy. He done. Cause you know this little white dude tell him maybe he gonna hold it down. Maybe he not gonna tell. I don't know, but yeah, man. This is crazy. Let's get into some more Diddy news. Let's see what the world is talking about. $50 casting and RBO Day react to deprive Sean Diddy Combs home. What you sow is what you shall reap. Yeah, man. Now everybody gonna pile it on Diddy. You know, all the people that was hazed over the years. And I'm starting to think that Diddy did something to, I'm starting to think Diddy did something to 50. 50 right, Diddy too much. And anybody that know me know I'm a G-Unit fan. I don't talk against my boy 50, but you ride that man too much. Get off that man nuts. What happened when you was writing all them songs, 50? Did he do something to you, man? Did he take you shopping, man? I must have missed that. Where that at? Let me see. Page 63. As described above, Mr. Combs frightened and placed plaintiff in apprehension of harm when he physically and sexually assaulted him from October 22nd to October 23rd in Mr. Combs' home in Miami, New York. And also Mr. Combs forcibly touched and attempted or threatened to touch plaintiff's intimate areas or touch plaintiff with his own intimate body parts. Mr. Combs violently gripped and palmed Mr. Jones' anus and crotch without consent. Once again, that cracks me up because Mr. Combs violently gripped and palmed Mr. Jones' anus. How can I grip and palm your anus? The only thing a motherfucker could do to your anus is put something in it, bro. Stop with that. He gripped and palmed my anus. I'm not believing you, bro. And if I was on your jury just for that, I'm not voting for you, bro. How is your anus out for a dude to just play with? You spreading your cheeks? Your ass is spreaded by your ass cheeks. Your ass is protected. Your asshole is protected by your ass cheeks. So for a dude to go in there and fondle your anus, you got to be spreading your cheeks, bro. Stop it, please, with that. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work in Mr. Combs' bathroom and watched Mr. Combs as he showered. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work in the studio while Mr. Combs stripped naked to get his body massaged. Mr. Combs forced Mr. Jones to work while Mr. Combs walked around naked. As a result of Mr. Combs' conduct, plaintiff has suffered and continued to suffer harm, including physical injury and several emotional distress, humiliation, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to award monetary damages and other relief. Do you ever notice nobody ever wants the rich person to go to jail? It's always they want money. The conduct of Mr. Combs described above was willful, wanton, and malicious at all relevant times. Mr. Combs acted in consciousness disregard for plaintiff's rights and feelings, acted with the knowledge or with reckless disregard for the fact that his conduct was certain to cause injury or humiliation to the plaintiff and intended cause fear physical harm. Mr. Jones brings this claim against Mr. Combs and J. Combs for the CRS shooting. The elements of bystander is closely related to injury. Victim is present at the scene of the injury, producing an event at the time it occurs, and is then aware that it is causing injury to the victim, and as a result, suffers serious emotional distress. A reaction beyond that which would be anticipated in a dissonant witness, which is not an abnormal response to circumstances. Also detailed above, Mr. Jones was 2 feet away from G as either J. Combs or Mr. Combs shot him multiple times in the restroom of the CRS as detailed above. Mr. Jones was the only individual that aided G as he laid in the bathroom floor in a fetal position, bleeding out. As detailed above, Mr. Combs and J. Combs orchestrated a cover-up and through Fahim Muhammad lied to the LAPD and forced Mr. Jones and all the other attendees of the writers' camp to lie to the police as well. Mr. Combs and J. Combs knew that they shot G in the restroom and that G was shot and was leaving as he was shot as he was leaving. Mr. Combs and J. Combs' intentionally deceptive caused a delay in G receiving immediate medical care as the ambulance parked 3 blocks away from the CRS out of the fear that there was an active shooting. Mr. Jones had to run down the block and convince them the shooting had ended. The events traumatized Mr. Jones. It caused Mr. Jones to suffer from insomnia, PTSD, severe anxiety, and depression. Additionally, the fear and silence from the remaining witnesses aided in the reinforcement of Mr. Combs' statement that he is untouchable. As a result of Mr. Combs and J. Combs' conduct, plaintiff Jones has suffered and continued to suffer harm, including severe emotional distress, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to and award monetary damages and other relief. The conduct of Mr. Combs and J. Combs described above as willful, wanton, and malicious at all relevant times. Mr. Combs and J. Combs acted with conscious disregard for plaintiff's rights and feelings, acted with the knowledge of or with reckless disregard for the fact that their conduct was certain to cause injury to plaintiff and intend to cause fear, physical injury, and pain and suffering to plaintiff. Mr. Jones and recorded sexual assault. This is with him complaining about Young Miami's cousin. Yo, Diddy, man, I'm telling you, man, I'll take her, man. Mr. Jones incorporated by preceding paragraphs and all realleges them as is set forth fully hearing. As described above, Jane Doe 1 frightened and placed plaintiff in apprehensions of harm when she physically and sexually assaulted him on Thanksgiving Day 2022 in Mr. Combs' home in Florida. Jane Doe 1 forcibly touched and attempted or threatened to touch plaintiff's intimate areas and touched plaintiffs with her own intimate body parts. Jane Doe 1 used her mouth and performed oral sex on plaintiff while he was urinating in the restroom. Plaintiff fought her off while Mr. Combs and his associates sat outside loudly laughing. Jane Doe 1 then followed Mr. Jones outside of the restroom and began undressing in front of Mr. Combs and his associates, straddled Mr. Jones and attempted to have forced sexual intercourse with him. As a result of Jane Doe 1 conduct, plaintiff has suffered and continues to suffer from including physical injuries, suffered emotional distress, humiliation, anxiety, and other consequential damages for which he is entitled to an award, monetary damages, and other relief. The conduct of Jane Doe 1 described was willful, wanton, and malicious at all relevant times. And as you know how that goes. This is just repeating. The young Miami cousin was legally on the premises as a guest invited of Mr. Combs. Jane Doe 1 was legally on the premises as a guest and invited of Mr. Combs. Mr. Combs owned the premises and had domain and control over the premises where Miss Jones was harmed. Mr. Combs had domain and control over the actions of Jane Doe 1 and failed to step in and stop Jane Doe 1 from sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. As property owner, that's just him tying Puffy in. Oh, he's going after Cuban Jr. He's going after Puffy for Cuban Jr. Because if, you didn't watch my other video, he's also accused Cuban Gooding Jr. on a yacht rented by Combs in the Virgin Islands. In January 2023, Mr. Combs was present while Mr. Jones was being assaulted by Cuba Gooding Jr. Mr. Jones was legally on the premises as a guest. Mr. Combs owned through rented the premises and had domain and control over the premises where Mr. Jones was harmed. Mr. Combs had domain and control over the actions of Cuban Gooding Jr. and failed to step in and stop Cuban Gooding Jr. from sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. As the owner of the property, Mr. Combs had a duty to protect Mr. Jones from the harm he suffered at the hands of Cuba Gooding Jr. Mr. Combs breached the duty when he failed to stop Cuba Gooding Jr. from sexually assaulting Mr. Jones. In furtherance of this breach, Mr. Combs encouraged Cuba Gooding Jr. to continue his assault of Mr. Jones when he said that Cuba Gooding Jr. should privately get to know Mr. Jones better. Mr. Jones has suffered immensely because Mr. Combs intentionally breached his duty to him. As a result of Mr. Combs' breach of duty, Mr. continues suffered, blah, 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 anxiety, blah, blah, blah. Trafficking and Victims Protection Act. And this is just tying Puffy into the sex trafficking, saying y'all flew people around, blah, blah, blah. I was looking for something else. Aiding and abetting, sex trafficking. Go to page 63. That's what I was looking for. Something on page 63. Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties, affiliation with, and or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' self-trafficking parties garnering legitimacy and access to celebrities such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British Royal Prince Harry. Mr. Combs and Combs controls entities made to defendants Lucien Charles Grant. So they even roped to Prince Harry in this. Where is Diddy, everybody? Diddy's on the run. We don't know where he at. Where is Diddy? Diddy had no idea he was on Uncle Sam's radio before a video that came storming through his front doors, which is interesting considering the severity of the allegations he's been facing lately. Sources with direct knowledge tell TMZ Bad Boy founder and his team were completely in the dark about what was coming Monday, namely the fact Homeland Security was coordinating two separate raids on both coasts, one in LA and one in Miami. While some might have suspected Diddy he was privy to the situation on account of him being stopped on the runway of an airport in Miami, we're told that simply not true. We've been told that he was with his family when agents rolled up on them at the Miami Okalaka Executive Airport. In fact, our sources tell us it was getting ready to enjoy spring break with his kids, a couple of whom are still in high school. Their plans for travel were derailed, however, on the drop of a dime, some of which we've seen documented in pictures and video. There's even our sources that even before the feds came blasting Diddy's LA property, there were signs that news helicopters were already in the sky and an awaiting plane is here. Diddy was completely oblivious to any of this happening, and the guy was not on the run. An unfair conclusion may have led to as the saga has unfolded. We do know that other jets of his all black one that he personally used landing in Tigiri yesterday as well. But at this point, it doesn't appear he can connected to what's going on here in the States. In terms of investigation, we confirm these raids pertain to a federal investigation that Diddy is at the center of, stemming from allegations of sex trafficking, sexual assault, soliciting, and distributing illegal narcotics as well as firearms. The warrants were issued in federal court out of New York. We reached out to Diddy's team. So far, no word back. So that's what we got so far in Diddy news. But as you can see, man, I'm just scrolling through the internet, and I just want to say, click that like, share, subscribe. If you watch any part of this video, I appreciate it, and I'll be back. These are my first couple times going live, so I'm just testing it out, and I figured since everybody on the internet talking about Diddy, I might as well jump on and talk about Diddy. But, like I always say, I'm your boy, Tommy Springfield. Holler at me if you like what I'm doing. Hit the like button, click, share, subscribe, comment. And if you out here hating, cut the shit.